Hello, I hope you're doing well. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about a miniaturized version of an Arduino called a TinyDuino. Now, the TinyDuino is made by a company called TinyCircuits, and it is a derivative of the Arduino. So what does that mean? Well, it's not made by Arduino, it's made by a totally different company, but it's built upon this whole Arduino environment. So the TinyDuino runs on the Arduino IDE. All the sketches that you make for any of your other Arduino boards would run on a TinyDuino. And it also has the similar concepts like shields. So TinyDuino has shields you can build on. We're going to talk about all this stuff. So specifically in this tutorial, we're going to do an overview of the TinyDuino platform. And then we're going to walk through getting it set up to work with your Arduino IDE. We'll set up a sample sketch. And then finally, we'll talk about some notes on powering your TinyDuino. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said before, the TinyDuino is essentially a super small version of an Arduino Uno. And to give you an idea of the size, you can take a look at a US quarter next to the processor board. And you can see it's pretty small. It's actually 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters. Now, like the Arduino, it has stackable shields that add capability to the processor. So the company is constantly developing new shields, and they currently have quite a plethora of shields. So they've got Wi-Fi shields, Bluetooth low energy shields, micro SD, Ethernet, accelerometer, GPS, motor controller, got all types of prototyping shields for like soldering connections on, and of course LED shields. You have to have LED shields. Now, as you would imagine, the form factor for these shields, they're called tiny shields, are very small, and they fit in very snugly with the processor board. Now, there's one thing to note about this whole shield business. One of the deals when you get the TinyDuino processor is you actually need a micro USB tiny shield in order to load sketches onto the processor. Now this is partly done because, again, to keep that small form factor, they had to reduce the Arduino to its essential components. So you have to get a separate shield that has a micro USB cable on it, and that's the most common way to program this TinyDuino. Now, once you've programmed it, you can pull the shield off, and you can use the shield for any other TinyDuino that you might have. So you just need one of the USB shields, but you can use the same shield for multiple TinyDuinos. Now, if we take a look at the processor board, you can see in the center it's got a surface mount chip on it. That's the Atmel 328 chip. That's the same chip that you would use on your Arduino, just a different size, much smaller, obviously. It's got a reset button on it, just like your Arduino would have a reset button on it. And it also has an onboard LED at pin 13 that blinks just like the LED on your Arduino board. So all that similar stuff. The big white rectangle you see there is actually the connector. So those are where the shields snap on and build up. If you flip the processor board over, you may or may not see a battery holder. You can order the TinyDuino with the battery holder or without the battery holder. It's pretty cheap to get it with the battery holder. I would do it. You can run it on a coin cell battery, and we'll talk more about powering it shortly. So that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and get this thing set up. It's as simple as it is small. When you purchase a TinyDuino, it comes with a very simple installation guide, and we're just going to walk through that guide. So the first thing you need to do is download some drivers for that USB Tiny Shield in order to be able to upload sketches to your TinyDuino. So you just navigate to the website they give you. It's at the FTDI-Chip.com website. And what you're going to be downloading is a virtual COM port driver. So that's a VCP driver. So you scroll down the page and you see a table where it's got operating system on the left and processor architecture on the top. And to be honest, it looks a little intimidating, especially if you're a goof like me and you have no idea what your processor architecture is. So I'm going to share a little secret with you. This turns out to be way easy. Now, if you're running a Windows computer, all you have to do is download this executable. So you just click on this link over here, you download that, it's an exe, you run that file, it's an installer program, it's going to install it for you. You just follow the prompts. It's like a no-brainer. Now, when you run it, it's Windows is probably going to ask you, hey, do you care if we run this installer program, blah, 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 blah. Just say yes, and then that will work. If you're running a Mac, it doesn't matter which one of these zip files you download, they all contain the exact same file. So let me just show you an example here. I'll go ahead and click on this. We'll download this driver, or we'll download this zip file. And when I open it up, it gives me two options. This 10.3 and then this 10.4, 10, blah, 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 blah. So I'll go ahead and double click on that and I'm going to open it. And look at this. It says wrong OS version. So I'm not running 10.3, so it's going to say, hey man, don't install this. So I close it. It's that easy. So if you don't know, don't sweat it. It won't let you install the wrong one. So then you can just go ahead and install the other one. It walks you through a setup. And that's it. That's all you have to do to install those drivers. So now go ahead and connect your TinyDuino to the USB TinyShield, and then connect that via the micro USB cable to your computer. Open up the Arduino IDE and let's go ahead and change some settings so that we can start communicating and uploading sketches with the TinyDuino processor. And this is something you would have to do with any different Arduino board that you would use. So this isn't anything special really. So go up to Tools and go to Board, and then come down here and you're going to want to select Arduino Pro or Pro Mini 3.3 volt 8 megahertz with Atmega 328. So you select that and then come back up to Tools, go down to Serial Port, and you're going to want to select the serial port that is associated with your Arduino on your computer. So if you're using a PC, it's probably going to be COM port 3 or COM port 4. And if you're using a Mac, I find mine usually starts with a TTY and then I get the USB serial. Now the end line here is a little different than I'm used to seeing with my Arduino Uno, but generally it's going to jump out. You'll know which one you need to select. And once you've made those selections, if you look down in the bottom right of the Arduino IDE, you'll see that it actually spells out that connection. So it will say the name of the board that you connected and the serial port that you selected that it was on. So what I want to do is just upload a sample sketch. So let's go to File, Examples, Basics, Blank. And now I'm just going to click Upload. And if you look at your TinyDuino, as it's uploading, you'll notice two lights flashing really quick. Those are the transmit and receive lights that you're used to seeing on your Arduino board. And then underneath, if you look at the TinyDuino, you can see that there is an surface mount LED blinking. And that is the same LED that would be at pin 13 on your Arduino board. And we can see that the program is successfully working because this is just the blink program. Now, what I want to point out that's really cool about this is you can see that this sketch, which you would think of normally loading on your Arduino, your Uno or whatever, is completely compatible with this TinyDuino. You don't have to make any changes. That's what's so nice about this TinyDuino ecosystem is that, like we said before, it's a derivative of the Arduino, so all the code that you write can be ported to this or ported away from that really easily, with no need for changing, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. So now that we've done that, let's talk about a couple ways of how we can power the TinyDuino. So by far, the easiest way to power the TinyDuino is to use a coin cell battery. And again, this is if you have that optional coin cell battery holder in the back. And that's as easy as just inserting the coin cell battery into the back. And then you can see our sketch starts running again. And that's pretty cool. Now, it will take a CR1612 through CR1632 battery. I'm using a CR1632. I think you'll find that's probably the most common. At least I was able to find it at my local corner drugstore pretty easily. Another way to power the TinyDuino is to use an external power supply. And I've had a lot of luck with rechargeable lithium polymer batteries. And actually, I get these batteries from Adafruit Industries. And I just use a 3.7 volt 1200 milliamp battery with a 2-pin JST PH connector, which is just a fancy way of saying this little connector. It's got 2 pins on it. And this 2-pin JST connector is really simple. It has a male-female side, and then the female side just connects in just like that, nice clip. And then all you do is you snip that wire because it's going to have a male side on the other side of it generally when you buy them. And you'll get something like, you'll get 2 separate wires like that. And then what you do is just solder those on to the power and ground on the TinyDuino processor board. It's really that simple. And that's nice because then you can attach and unattach the power, no problem. You don't have to solder and unsolder it every time you want power or not power. So that's pretty cool. So one important note when you are supplying external power, and this is from the manufacturer, it's that the board does not have a voltage regulator on it. So you do not want to supply more than 5.5 volts. Otherwise, you're going to permanently damage your board and that would ruin your day. So that pretty much sums up the tutorial today. I hope that you found it helpful. You can see this TinyDuino form factor is pretty awesome. I mean, it is just super small, which makes it handy for a lot of applications. So definitely go check them out. You can check out their website at TinyCircuits.com. They have a really neat website. They're close to my heart because I'm from Akron too, so I love the fact that they're from Akron and that the stuff is made here in the Midwest. So hey, have a great day and take it easy. Bye.